Hey there, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo.
I'm Ronan Grace, this is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we are here with, I think, very different topics, right? Yours is very different from mine. We like to tell, scary-ish type things. So we've done true crime, we've done haunted stuff, aliens,
extraterrestrials.
I think this week is going to be a mix of everything. So
Robin does this thing where every now and then she wants our topics to match up, but sometimes our topics are so incredibly different, they could not be more diametrically opposed. So I'm not sure how well they match up. I'm just going to go ahead and say, obviously I'm covering aliens. Anyone who has seen the name of the episode knows that already. So.
All right.
That's what I'm covering. Robin, what are you going to be covering this episode?
I'm going to be covering a weird topic. It's death by ghost, but not really. It's just deaths that have ghosts involved, or do they?
Interesting.
I'm thing.
Very curious to see if you'll overlap with one of the stories I did 5 years ago.
Oh God!
I'm curious to see, because I covered some. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know there was a ghost that was supposedly associated with someone's death. So
okay,
we'll see. But yeah, aside from the topics we're about to bust out into your ear holes, Robin, what's been going on with you the last week, huh?
I don't even know what we haven't done anything.
Lots of work. Work has been incredibly stressful for me this week.
Yeah,
it's been hard.
A lot of just working. That's it. I think that's it.
We had a lot, man. This last 2 weeks or so has just been a lot of stuff dumped on us life-wise. We almost skipped this week just for mental health purposes, but I was just a distraction would kind of be good right now. So
yeah,
we're here. Of one of the things that happened, which is kind of abnormal, we have a property management company that we rent through.
Yeah,
and they do inspections of our place every 3 months. It's so frequent. So I was really concentrating on getting the whole house cleaned. And I was talking to my boss about it, and I was just yeah, we have this inspection coming. It was those happen kind of often for you. I was yeah, it's every 3 months. He's Jesus. I don't even think I inspected my kids' rooms every 3 months. I was I don't know. I guess we're not trustworthy. So that in the middle of all the other stuff was just the cherry on top. Everything went well. So that was cool.
But you know what's great about this weekend?
What's that?
Is that F1 is in Japan, and therefore it is at a normal time for us to watch
Normal
it.
As in 10 p.m. to watch an event start.
Yeah.
But we'll be awake, so that is kind of nice.
It's kind of nice. You don't have to wake up at 5 in the morning.
This is true. So Robin is still very much addicted to F1 to the point where it's almost getting a little bit annoying now.
Yeah.
But she's
super annoyed.
I wouldn't say super annoyed. It's just all the memes I get nowadays, and everything she talks about is F1. Look out for our F1 podcast, F1-ish, coming out soon. Where Robin is super enthusiastic, and I'm kind of blasé about the whole thing. But it is fun. I totally understand it. Yeah, man, outside of that, not a whole lot going on. I would say it's just F1 talk, tons and tons of work, and just slowly being crushed by life. So, fun stuff. The normal thing. I think most of our listeners are yep, I hear you. So, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and get us started this week. I believe this week, I feel like I need to dip a toe back into the world of aliens. This is definitely happening as a topic sooner than I intended to go back in there. I like to mix it up, try and space things out, give you guys some variety. But it seems like there's always something new happening with aliens nowadays. And the amount of folks who send me this shit on my socials is staggering. Did you see this? And they don't say hashtag aliens confirmed or anything when they send it to me, but it's kind of implied with the news organization telling the story that's obviously already out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a credible news source. They're basically just the news that would confirm aliens existed in a tabloid.
All right.
But I've gotten this one so much, I figured I'd dig into it a little bit, wait for some results to come back from the science community. And then break it down. There's some stuff that happened, I think, 2 or 3 days ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
When I saw that came through, I was I think it's about time to cover this rather than let it sort of drift into the months ago realm. Because the last time I waited, I think, for a couple of weeks after the testimonies happened in the U.S. Congress and things like that. Again, spurred by people sending it to me hashtag aliens confirmed. So what I'm going to cover is the quote-unquote alien remains that were shown in the Mexican Congress about 2 weeks ago. I think it was actually 10 days ago. I don't know exactly what I'm going to call this. I'm thinking it's going to be like Alien Autopsy or like the Mexican Alien Mummy or something along those lines.
All right.
But we'll see what winds up on the thing. Either way, it's going to be pretty obvious that I'm talking about aliens again. So this is not a rehash of a previous topic. Yes, I mean, aliens are already back in the news, so it might seem like we're going back to the same thing, but we're really not. There's a lot of stuff being shared on social media. I think a lot of people have seen this.
Lots of memes.
I'm not on TikTok very much. I have a TikTok. I will say I have folks reach out to me sometimes like, did you see this thing on TikTok? I'm just like, oh, no, I'm not on there. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. And then they tell me the conspiracy theory. I'm like, you need to get off TikTok. Like, that sounds fucking stupid. And this one's been making the rounds on there, too. It is a very dubious claim, at best, from first glance. So if you've heard of this and not really looked too much past the headlines and the pictures, you'd probably be like, I don't know about that. But I wanted to do my due diligence before I brought it on the show and before I passed judgment on it. It's super easy to see something like these sorts of claims and immediately just say, what a load of horse shit. But we should be fair. Like, we should evaluate this thing and go through it. So let's start at the beginning. So in case you have not heard about this, and it's very possible you haven't, like maybe you're not on the socials or maybe you just haven't heard about this in general, the country known as Mexico hosted hearings similar to those that were hosted recently in the United States, re aliens.
Okay.
So they said, like, we're going to have an official hearing on it. And it's actually the first time there's been a congressional hearing regarding aliens in the Congress of Mexico. So it is kind of a milestone. It's like a big step forward in the idea that it's serious enough where they're going to actually sit down and talk about it and see what folks have to bring to the table. And I will say, as far as milestones go, it didn't disappoint.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. In this case, rather than being a U.S. official whose career was investigating UAPs/UFOs, it was a journalist/UFologist. I'm not sure if it's UFOologist or ufologist or ufologist.
It's ufologist.
Ufologist indeed. Oof. And this individual was presenting claims and quote unquote evidence. The guy's name is Jaime, or Jaime, probably Jaime Mawson, and he not only went on the official record claiming that UFOs and aliens do exist, but he presented the bodies/corpses of 2 alien beings that had somehow made their way to our planet. They brought out these small coffins, they opened them, and inside were the remains of what's supposed to be 2 small gray aliens.
DNA test.
So, obviously. He made some equally shocking claims aside from opening these things up, and he stated, quote, I think there is a clear demonstration that we are dealing with non-human specimens that are not related to any other species in our world, and that all possibilities are open for any scientific institution to investigate it. We are not alone. End quote. And that's a real quote. I will say there may not have been a dramatic pause at the end like that, but that's just how I read that sentence when you're talking about aliens.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I do want to bring up the pictures, which will be on our Instagram, so that Robin can see them and get an idea of what was shown on the floor of the Mexican Congress when it stated these are alien bodies for everyone to see. And we'll sort of just talk about what we're looking at. Obviously, at Scaryish Podcast is their Instagram. You can totally check them out there as well.
And it's this guy holding the margarita, right?
Yeah. So it was funny. I was scrolling through my Facebook while I was waiting for Robin to wrap up her topic, and I just stopped randomly and got everything set up when she said she was done. I looked over, and my friend has a live look inside the F-35 meme, and it's like, it's an alien. It's like a gray alien inside the cockpit of a fighter jet drinking a margarita with a sombrero, and there's just a bunch of like food wrapped around him. It looks funny. So that's what she's referring to. That's not the picture we're going to be describing to you guys, though. Instead, we're going to look at this one of the body of one of these aliens that was presented to Congress. What are your first impressions, Robin?
It looks like a statue or something.
It really does, right? The arms are perfectly straight. The legs are perfectly straight. It doesn't look like it has a rib cage. It just looks like its abdomen is the same length, like maybe 2 or 3 times as thick as the arms are, running up to like a single clavicle that goes to a neck that has like the stereotypical gray alien skull.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you look at the next picture,
the schedule for F1.
This is the schedule for F1. You can see, in comparison to the guys standing by it, these are not very big. These are tiny. They're like the size of a dog.
Okay. So like a gnome or something.
Yeah, they're very, very small. They're very rigid. They both look very similar. It's, like human skeletons obviously look very similar once you get all the skin and like muscles and stuff off.
Yeah.
But it's just very, very odd. And they presented these things. I think there was as much trepidation and skepticism on the floor of Congress when they displayed these things as there was like professionalism, like people trying to be reasonable and like listen to what they had to say. So to me, immediately seeing these things, like I had heard this, I had seen the headlines, and I had seen the pictures of these. I was like, oh, cool. It's horseshit. Like, obviously it has to be. Like, because this looks so fake to me.
Yeah.
And just looking at it, it's like, it looks very, very fake. But you never know. Like, if something real were to be presented, I assume it would look fake. Because a lot of things that are real, like if you were to just make it up or see it for the first time, you probably wouldn't believe it in the first place. So who knows? Maybe this is it. This is the milestone. Like, this is the turning point. We finally saw an alien body and it was confirmed. So that's why I wanted to wait to see some of this other stuff, to see like what sort of science to come out with it. So looking at this body though, Robin, as our UFO specialist and our F1 expert,
no,
do you think this thing could fit inside an F1 car? And based off the large cranium, do you think they'd be a better driver or a worse driver?
Shut up, you're so stupid.
They have weak necks, and these guys have to train their necks in F1 quite a bit, so there's no way that thing could sit in an F1 car. No way.
What
So, honestly, at first glance, these things look like they're carved from rock to me. They look like statues
They
to
look
the
like
point
concrete or something.
where they look like they got an old rock and they just carved an alien-looking shape out of it. It's supposedly not one solid, like, rock piece. It's supposed to have, like, some sort of, like, mummified skin, and then underneath is supposed to be, like, bones. And there is DNA to it, so now that we've had a look at it, if you've looked at our Instagram, let's talk about some of the quote-unquote science presented with it. So also there to testify was this guy named Jose de Jesus Zalche Benitez. He's the director of the Scientific Institute for Health of the Mexican Navy. So obviously he has a pretty high title. Like, he's not just some fucking schlub he got off the street to be like, see, like, yeah, that looks real. Like, this is a dude that has science, that he, has a high level position within the Mexican Navy. He did claim that the corpses had been examined through multiple tests that included x-rays, 3D reconstruction, and DNA analysis. The big one, the one that you mentioned right away, like test the DNA. He stated the testing had led him to the conclusion that the bodies have no relation to human beings. So that to me sounds like someone who's trying to testify that they're trying to have their testimony lead you to a specific conclusion without lying. This is Ayas Sedai bullshit written all over it. It's like, I could show you a literal rock and be like, this is an alien. And you'd be like, that's a rock. And I'd be like, no, this has no connection to the human species in any way, shape, or form. You'd be like, yeah, no shit, it's a fucking rock.
Okay.
Like, this doesn't mean it's an alien, but being presented in the way it was, it's like, this is supposed to be supportive testimony, which is just sort of absurd. After this whole hearing happened, the National Autonomous University of Mexico, which I think is where these tests were done, released a statement that the tests that had been run in their facilities were done so with the exclusive intention. The only reason they were doing it was to determine how old the sample was, not where it came from.
Okay.
So that makes me question the DNA analysis thing they said they were doing on it, because there's nothing else I could find related to what test they ran for DNA analysis. And the place that they stated they ran it at came forward independently and stated, we only tested how old it was. This is where it gets kind of interesting, though. The dating for these things are supposed to be around 1,000 years old.
Okay, so it can't be modern concrete. Like, they didn't just make this up. If this is from 1,000 years ago, it could be a statue carved 1,000 years ago.
It could be the remnants of something else that is not technically alien. Like, basically, UNAM is what this place is called. The University of Mexico said, in no case do we make conclusions about the origin of these samples. They're basically stating all we can determine is how old what we tested is. We don't know where the fuck it's from. So I was like, maybe it's this separate race that developed entirely separately from human beings here on Earth that's long gone extinct that we're finding a body of. Maybe these bodies have been recovered in the past and assumed to be aliens. It could be an indigenous people that were mutilated, like upon death for some reason, to wind up looking so bizarre, which is something that's actually done in Peru. I was reading about that.
Really?
And, like, that is something that happens. But it is really, really tiny, and it's very hard to tell. So the one thing about this that I will say sounds legit is that they stated their tests said it was 1,000 years old. The skeptic in me is like, maybe they just created something that's obviously fake and then wrapped it in something that could be tested that would come back as 1,000 years old. Like some old sort of material they found somewhere, and they're like, let's just make paper mache out of this shit and make the skin out of it. I don't know what part of it they tested, you know? I don't know if they just took a whole or like a, fragment out of its core and were like, test every part of it. Oh, it all came back at 1,000 years old. Or just took like some flakes from the skin. They were like, oh yeah, it came back as 1,000 years old. There's a lot of shit on Earth that's 1,000 years old that you could like destroy and use as part of your hoax.
Like what?
Like anything that they could find that's an actual artifact. Like if they found an actual statue from 1,000 years ago and just fucking ground it up into dust and then turn it into fucking concrete or putty or some shit. I don't know. There's got to be ways that you can fake shit like that. But it's the one piece of evidence they basically had that said, hey, this could be legit. And that native Peru thing that I was mentioning came out back in 2017 at an excavation site where they stated they found something similar to this. And they're like, this could be something that came from an old civilization. It doesn't necessarily mean it's alien when it's old.
Right.
So I do want to step aside and say, remember the hearings that happened a few months ago here in the United States? They got so much attention. I covered, I think, in episode 273, where we talked about how like the whole aliens confirmed thing was spreading like around the internet. One of the guys that testified at our hearings in the United States is named Ryan Graves. I believe he's also named Ryan Garcia. I talked about him in my other topic. He was there during this hearing. They asked him to come down and speak in the Mexican congressional hearing to testify about the same things that he had seen, hopefully bringing forward additional folks with documented, substantiated claims from a different part of the world. His statement regarding how the hearing went after the fact, like once the Mexican congressional hearing was done, this is what his statement was. He posted it on his Twitter, and people were like, what do you think? Like, how did it go? You saw the alien firsthand. He said, quote, after the U.S. congressional UFO hearing, I accepted an invitation to testify before the Mexican Congress, hoping to keep up the momentum of government interest in pilot experiences with UAP. Unfortunately, yesterday's demonstration was a huge step backwards for this issue. My testimony centered on sharing my experience and the UAP reports I hear from commercial and military aircrew through ASA's witness program, which is the program that he works with. I will continue to raise awareness of UAP as an urgent matter of aerospace safety, national security, and science, but I am deeply disappointed by this unsubstantiated stunt. End quote. He was fucking pissed.
At these guys.
At these guys for bringing this thing out. He was immediately like, what fucking horse shit have you brought me into at this point? And he made it very well known immediately after these hearings were done that he thought this entire thing was bullshit. He's not the only one. The internet mainly reacted without the whole like aliens confirmed when they saw the pictures of it, like, wow, that thing looks fake as fuck.
The video where it's like, it's actually cake.
Yeah, I saw that video. It's so fucking funny. And like a cake looked more convincing, this thing to me.
But it is something that's 1,000 years old. Somehow they tested it to be 1,000 years old.
Well, here's where it's going to start getting really interesting. So first of all, when it comes to Ryan Graves, I do want to say that's a dude who's trying to show credible claims that something is happening outside of our current understanding, the public's current understanding, that may be a threat to national security, just like general safety for like airplane travel.
Yeah. And
he watched this little guy get busted out like it's a smoking gun and was like, what horse shit? And this is the other thing. When it comes to where this specimen came from, it was actually dug up in Peru in 2017. The reference I made earlier to people saying it might be a native in Peru was from when it was discovered 6 years ago. There was actually another claim when it was excavated from the Peruvian Attorney General's office on this thing.
What?
So when it was dug up and this guy that went in there, Jaime, started stating that he found this thing in Peru, the Attorney General's office got involved. They said, we need to investigate what you're claiming. And they brought in their Institution of Legal Medicine and Forensic Sciences to investigate these two recovered bodies. When they were done, their investigations concluded that the bodies were, quote, recently manufactured, end quote.
Okay.
That they were literally made, and stated they were, quote, creations made of animal and human bones joined together with synthetic glue. These were in turn covered with a mixture of plant fibers and synthetic glue to simulate a type of skin, end quote. So whatever these plant mixtures that they put in there could be the reason they're getting like 1,000 years old, or someone's just making that shit up and gave them a fake result so that there was like some sort of authenticity to this.
Yeah.
So this thing, when it was discovered 6 years ago, had bullshit called on it. So now's a really good time to talk about Jaime Maussan, the guy who brought these things onto the floor of Congress, to give you an idea of what kind of a dude this is. So what does he say about the claims that this thing is fake? To be honest, not a lot, aside from just restating that it's authentic.
Because there's nothing he can say to, prove it more, that it's real.
This is something that the rest of the scientific community saw and was like, this seems like horseshit. You don't actually have any sort of scientific data or scientific paper to publish. If this was real, you would have waited for it to publish it when you presented it. But because you didn't, and now you're not allowing anyone to test on it, it's definitely a hoax. So Jaime has apparently a pretty popular YouTube channel where he just spreads all sort of conspiracy theories, most of them debunked or just total bullshit in general.
Okay.
If you're wondering if he's ever found something like this before, you better strap in.
What?
So he showed the world something called the, quote, creature of Metepec. I don't know how to say that word, but it is a town in Mexico. I do apologize. Back in the day, what happened was there was supposedly some sort of weird creature running around this farm, and this farmer named Urso Ruiz killed it. He and a few other ranch hands / farmers kept seeing this thing. They decided to try and trap it. They trapped it. They were afraid it was going to escape, and they killed it. That was their story. They sold this thing to Jaime. This thing is small, too. It looks like the size of a rat, basically.
Okay.
And even though it looks like the size of a rat, it's very similar in appearance to like a gray alien, which is why Jaime was interested in it.
Okay.
So he bought it. And then a few weeks after the story broke, like, hey, this alien was recovered off of this farm in Mexico. The owner of the ranch, the guy who employed all those farmers / ranch hands, he fucking died in a car fire. And the story then became the aliens killed him for retribution for killing the other creature. So Jaime spreads this entire story to the world. A place in the UK says, hey, we'll test the authenticity for you. He gives them 2 samples, then afterwards regrets it and states no one else will get samples. Probably crossing his fingers, hoping it's going to come back as inconclusive. It comes back and identified as a monkey. They're just like, this is a fucking monkey, dude. Like, this is a monkey native to the area you're in. And then they said, why don't you have the guy who sold this to you take a lie detector test? So Urso Ruiz does take a lie detector test. He cracks. He admits that he crafted it at his second job, which is a taxidermist who works for a zoo.
Okay.
He was given a monkey, and then they decided they weren't going to pay him for it, so he decided he'd make something out of it, and then wound up fabricating a story so he could sell it for money.
How convenient.
Yeah, very, very convenient. And it's just, everyone's like, Jaime probably knew this was horseshit, but just wanted to peddle this thing for attention, hoping that he could somehow make money off of it.
Right.
So that was a while back, though. Obviously, like, I think this is like 13 years ago, 14 years ago, maybe more. And maybe he only has one strike against him. The question is still, why did he wind up on the floor of the Mexican Congress to present these things? And if you're thinking, well, maybe because he has this quest for truth. The truth is out there. I want to believe type of shit.
Yeah.
He kept moving until he found something that was authentic. Well, I got more. So in 2015, he presented something called the Roswell slides. The Roswell slides were a bunch of pictures supposedly taken inside of Roswell, New Mexico, specifically Area 51.
There's so much you can do in Photoshop and everything now, so it's hard to, believe any of it.
He stated that one of those photos showed an alien body inside Area 51. And after the investigation, people realized it was a manipulated photo that already existed.
Yes, there it is.
Of a mummy. A mummy that had been discovered before and displayed. And it was a mummy of a 2-year-old boy.
Aww.
And they decided they were going to try and state that this was an alien because it was just the right size. The other folks who were attached to this project, to these Roswell slides, came out and 100% admitted that the entire thing was full of shit. They all plotted it together. And they also got called out on a bunch of other, revelations they had shown. And they admitted those were all basically bullshit too. So all these hoaxsters run in the same circles, and they decided to perpetrate a new one for money basically together.
And it didn't work out.
Didn't work out. They admitted to it to try and avoid getting in trouble. When this happened, it was considered at the time to be the biggest, quote, black eye, end quote, in the history of the ufology movement.
Okay.
Oof, indeed. They may want to reevaluate the title of Biggest Black Eye with this new shit show that we're experiencing right now. I will say 2015 wasn't the last time shit popped off. Jamie went on a year later in 2016 to reveal to the world a demon fairy that they had found about twice the size of a hummingbird. By the way, I'm going to put pictures of the demon fairy on there, and I'm going to put pictures of the other thing that he found that he thought was a gray that was the size of a rat.
Okay.
So you can see the sorts of things that this guy presents, because those are much better forgeries than these fucking things he brought into Mexico's Congress. So the demon fairy actually looked pretty cool. It looked like it had insect limbs with a human torso, bat-like wings, and a horrific, like, demon-esque skull. So he was very convinced that it was authentic. Someone else as well, that's part of the ufologist movement, was very convinced. They bought it from Jaime for $10,000.
What a waste.
And then they had it tested, and they came out and they announced on their website, I could still find the original post on their Facebook too, that after the test came out, it was revealed that it was assembled out of bat parts, wooden sticks, epoxy, and, quote, other items designed to deceive, end quote. And they basically just stated this guy is a con man. He's a hoaxer. He's full of shit. And so, you know, everyone put him on like these like watchdog lists of people who try and con and hoax when it comes to UFO stuff and cryptology type of shit. He's like one of their top 10 offenders now in 2016. 2017, he goes to Peru and discovers the bodies of these two aliens that he immediately gets called out for. And they tell him like, this is totally fucking fake. No one buy into this. It's complete bullshit. He just made these things. And then he takes 6 years to, I don't know, refine this newest hoax and not even try and come up with a new one.
I'm sure he does that so that whoever he's doing it with, they kind of move on from that, right? And then he whips it out again and it's like, oh, nobody knows what this is. It's a mystery.
He's just very clearly full of shit. He's 100% a con man. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, while you can't be 100% sure of literally anything, this is something I am as close as humanly possible to 100% sure that this dude is full of shit and these things are fucking fake. And, like, they clearly just decided to try and make a new angle and bring it in. I am so convinced that these things are fucking fake that, like, the closest I get to a conspiracy theory or a reveal with this sort of thing is that because it's obviously such horseshit.
Yeah.
How the fuck did he get on the floor of the Mexican Congress to
Money.
present this? And it's like, it's almost like someone deliberately had him go there to sabotage the whole fucking thing. Like, if you were trying to hide the existence of aliens and UFOs and there was an official hearing, you would want the most ludicrous jagoff to show up so everyone would be like, oh, it's all bullshit anyways. Yeah. So it really feels like that was the case, because why else would this fucking dude be allowed to parade this bullshit in there and pretend like it's real? You
can pay your way in. Like,
he doesn't have fucking money. That's why he's doing all these bullshit hoaxes.
He gained $10,000 for something, right? He sold something for $10,000.
Yeah, and then he was called out for being full of shit. How long does $10,000 last you? Because it's not 7 fucking years. And he had to do this whole fake expedition in Peru to make a new bullshit thing.
All right.
To state that he found something new. So letting this dude onto the floor of the Mexican Congress is the most suspicious thing in this entire topic.
Yeah.
Like, this fucking alien is total bullshit. This guy is such a bullshit artist, and the fact that they let him show up, that's the most suspicious thing. Like, that has Men in Black fingerprints all over it, even though Men in Black don't have fingerprints. We all know that.
Oh,
so
my God.
I'm fucking on to you guys. Like, this is the most obvious sabotage move I've ever fucking seen. It's like, I can't imagine being Ryan Graves seeing this thing rolled out. I'm shocked that there wasn't anything about him literally throwing up out of disgust for the bullshit that they just made him sit through and travel to Mexico for. Like, congrats, Men in Black. You win another fucking round. So if you're going to share this nonsense on your social medias, please do so with either one or both of the hashtags, hashtag total horseshit or hashtag we are on to you, Men in Black.
No, none of those.
No, I'm dead serious. Use them both.
Oh, God.
And that, my friends, is the Mexican alien mummy.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I did not realize it was all BS because I honestly, when I saw the articles start popping up about it, I was just like, yeah, whatever, you know?
I assumed it was BS, even though they were trying to make it seem authentic-ish, which was like just a lot of the sites that were popping up on my phone or my suggested apps or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like clickbait bullshit apps.
Yes.
Like 100%. Mm-hmm. So when I started reading stuff from like the New York Times are more credible sources. I was just like, oh, these guys are all just straight up saying there's no science to back this up. And any scientists that have reached out to try and obtain actual data have been told to get fucked, basically. So I was just like, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
And then someone ran a background check on this dude, which is something they did from their desk while working as a journalist. And it's just like, well, you think the Mexican Congress would fucking do that before he parades this nonsense out and wastes everyone's fucking time. But nope, we still talked about it for like 30 minutes on our show. So congratulations,
I mean, like you said, it could have been on purpose.
Yeah.
So
they could have just had him come out there just to destroy the credibility so they wouldn't have to have any hearings like this in the future. So, but yeah, that's the story. Now you guys know. So there you go.
No one's half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
All right. Thank you.
We just got to the episode in Community where they have a G.I. Joe episode.
Yeah, it's very strange.
That's a fun episode. Anyways, before we move into Robin's topic, we are going to take a quick commercial break.
All right. Welcome to my half of the episode. We have a lot of stories that we've covered throughout the years. We've been doing this for 5, almost 6 years now. We've covered a lot of true crime, tales of people killing people. We've covered a lot of tales of haunted locations or haunted people.
Is there a word for people killing people?
Murder.
Murder.
But I don't know if we've actually ever covered people supposedly being like murdered or killed, or dying because ghosts were involved somehow. If you guys, listen to us, maybe you remember. We've been doing so many of these episodes, it's really hard for us to remember if we've covered something like that. But I don't think we
do
have.
our due diligence. We go back and check the episode descriptions and titles of every episode we've ever posted when we decide to do a topic.
Yeah, so. I don't know if I've ever covered a topic though where it was like ghosts were involved and then people got murdered because
I've
of them
only
or
remember
died.
doing one, and it was like specific to that case, and I don't remember the name
Adam's
of it.
waiting to hear it just to see if he's already covered
we'll
it.
see. I think our listeners are like, I'm going to message them right away if it's doubled up. If it is doubled up, I guess you can let us know about it, but please at Robin.
But anyway, that's what I'm going to cover today. It's like a little mix of both worlds, right? Of the true crime aspect, and we all love a good spooky story.
We were singing Best of Both Worlds earlier.
the Hannah Montana thing.
I don't think I've ever actually heard that song. I just know it exists, and that's what it's called.
My younger sister, I think, used to watch it a lot. I never did, but I know some words. Anyway, so this episode, we're going to mix that morbid curiosity together with our spooky vibes, and we'll hopefully think it's interesting. I don't know. The first tale here is from the 1800s in South Yorkshire, England. And of course, this tale has been told over and over again in various different formats, so it's bound to change from the original telling of the story.
Does this involve a guy being turned into a beast and then someone naming Gaston fighting him at the end?
No.
Because that's a tale as old as time.
Oh, stop! No beasts, no kings, princes, princesses, no bells.
No Belle dancing around the town singing about how much she fucking hates the town and then not understanding why people don't like her.
This story is the story of how Hannah Rowlandson's death was officially recorded as having died from fright.
Okay.
So
I don't think this is the one I covered.
Okay, cool. So it's the 1800s. Obviously, there's not a lot of medical know-how like we have in this day and age, but it could have been a heart attack. It could have been a heart defect.
You can die from being scared to death. Like, that's
it could have been a number of things, right? Hannah and her husband were Mormons, and it says Mormons. I don't think Mormons existed in the 1800s. I'm sure it's like some sect
to check my
of
historical
religion.
log.
I'm sure it's some sect of Catholicism or Christianity. I did not look it up.
There's so many sects out there.
Shut up. But they had moved into an area of Sheffield, and there they met a woman named Harriet Ward, and they started hanging out with her a bit more, she kind of ingrained herself into their lives. And according to Harriet, one day, she went down into the cellar at the Rowlandsons', place, their house, the place where they lived. She walked down into their cellar and she screamed.
Did she scream, "Yes, I am a Mormon," because as of 1850, British membership had risen to over 31,000 members?
Of Mormons?
They sent missionary work over there like 7
Wow.
years after they started it. I think
Okay,
it started in
cool.
like 1820 or 1830.
So yeah, so they were these Mormons that moved into this new area, met this woman.
See, you can trust the internet. Everything the internet says is true.
So Harriet, she screams, and according to her, she screamed because she had seen a terrifying ghost. The ghost was supposedly that of a woman covered in blood, and she saw this ghost not just once, but 5 separate times within the span of 24 hours.
I'm just picturing Lilith from True Blood.
That comes out of the puddle of blood.
That's all I can see, because every time she pops up, she's just covered in blood head to toe.
I mean...
Titties out and everything. I mean, it's HBO, so obviously they're going to be out.
Yeah, that show is something else, man. She saw this ghost 5 separate times during 24 hours. She saw it during the day while she was awake, and she even claimed to have seen it during the night in her dreams. Like, she would have nightmares about seeing this ghost. And obviously this is the Victorian era news cycle. They don't have a lot to talk about, right? There's not a lot of interesting stuff going on. It's not like the 24-hour news cycle that we have now where everyone's eating up the news all the time. There's something new happening constantly.
Spoon-fed horseshit.
So when someone starts talking about this ghost back in the day, that's all anyone can talk about is this ghost. The congregation starts becoming obsessed with the idea that there is this ghost, and they start calling it the Campo Lane ghost. They determined that this ghost must be a victim of murder and had to somehow be buried under the cellar floor of their house.
Wow.
So
it's a lot of detective work.
I have no idea how they determined this, but that's what they decided to do. And they decided the only thing to do from there is to dig up the floor. So they go into her cellar.
Imagine seeing a ghost, then everyone just deciding, like, we're going to rip up your fucking house.
So they go into the cellar and they start tearing up the floor. They start digging it up. And as they're digging up the floor, more and more people are like standing around watching, right? They want to see what happens. But they start putting up like blockers so no one can see into the cellar. And during the night, as they're digging, Hannah Rowlinson, she comes down into the cellar and faints on the cellar stairs. And she gets taken into another room on the main floor where everyone's trying to revive her because she's, when you faint, you pass out.
Right.
You're unconscious.
People freak out.
She wakes up and describes to those around her what had caused her to faint and fall down the steps.
Low blood sugar. The sugar shakes.
Newspapers report that she'd seen a woman in white that had rushed at her only to vanish as it reached her. Stories claim she announced having seen the ghost of a woman with gashes around its neck in a blood-stained gown. She claims the ghost told her her name and her story. So
I thought she dashed at her. That's a lot of shit to find out while someone's running at you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be a ghost and sprint down a hallway like, "Hi, my name is Adam. I used to host a podcast." Like, it's just not going to happen.
So supposedly this ghost tells her all this stuff. She says, I'm Elizabeth Johnson. I was murdered by William Dawson, who was her nephew, and that she'd been murdered over a century before.
Wow.
Elizabeth tells her to leave the house, stating that the house was marked by her blood. So that's creepy. I mean, what do you do with that information, right? Hannah, despite all signs of having been a completely healthy person prior, she dies the next day.
Wow, fuck.
Her death certificate officially recorded as her cause of death being, quote, sudden death in a fit believed to be brought on by a fright, end quote.
So she died of fear.
Yeah.
Scared to death.
But I don't think any coroner would report that as the case today, obviously.
They would have the exact medical term for like how her heart stopped.
Someone would have cut her open, gotten down to the nitty gritty of what the underlying case would be.
The only way you're getting declared as killed by a ghost is if they find like ectoplasm in your veins.
I am a ghost. She fell down the stairs. I think that's a very important part of the story is that she fell down the stairs. She could have had like brain hemorrhage, internal bleeding. It could have been a number of things, complications from falling down the stairs in the dark or whatever, not watching where you're going or actually being scared by a ghost. Or maybe she thought she saw a ghost because she fell down the stairs and hit her head.
Yeah, that's true too.
So it's just very fascinating that her death certificate literally says that she was killed by fear.
Died of poor medical care and stupid people digging up her house.
It's pretty crazy she died the next day.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
but 1800s, I'm sure the average age was like 30.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that is the first tale of the episode, I guess. Death by Ghost or something like that.
Okay.
The next story here is a little bit more gruesome, more true crime, more mystery. And it's in October of 2009. The Jameson family of Eufaula, Oklahoma. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, but Bobby Jameson, Sherilyn, and their daughter Madison mysteriously goes missing.
Okay.
So October 2009, they go missing. Their disappearance becomes this huge news story. During the initial investigation into the Jameson family disappearance, it was determined that they probably didn't just up and leave of their own accord. Their pickup truck was found abandoned in Latimer County a few days after their disappearance. And according to Google Maps, I had to look it up. I don't know anything about Oklahoma other than there's a musical about it.
Other than the winds go sweeping down the plains.
Is that from the musical?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never watched it.
I haven't either. I just heard. Okay. That's a little tiny bit of a tangent. I've watched the movie Twister so many fucking times. I know the part of the song of Oklahoma that they're singing as they're driving around at the beginning when they're chasing down their first tornado.
Okay.
So that's where I know that from.
Okay. So they find this pickup truck in Latimer County, and according to Google Maps, it's about an hour away.
Okay.
So the truck got an hour away from their home. And the family dog, Macy, is still in the truck when they find it.
Aww.
And it's like, obviously, hungry. It's been a few days.
You say obviously, and no way, shape, or form is that obvious. I thought you were about to say dead.
No.
So I'm happy
the dog
to hear
was
that
still
the dog
alive.
was alive.
The dog was still alive, just a bit malnourished from having been in a truck by itself for days. Investigators found their IDs, their phones, their wallets. They found a GPS system, and they also find $32,000 in cash.
Wow. Holy
in the truck.
Shit.
No one carries around $32,000 in cash.
Everywhere I go, I carry 32 grand.
I fucking wish. But it's just not normal. Finding that much cash in a truck like that, not normal. So that's already something that's super sus in this situation. Based on footage from the home's surveillance system, they were able to place the couple the day that they left, and it shows them making what seems like a planned leave. Like they're packing up to go, It's
like toothbrush, toiletries. Okay, cool. Don't forget your favorite pillow. 32 grand in cash.
They're completely silent as they're doing all of this, moving all their stuff into the truck. And people who've watched this describe them as being in like a trance-like state. And they just take the same path back and forth from the truck to the house, back and forth. And
Are they moving stuff or are they just walking back and forth?
I don't see anything in their hands when I was watching this. But maybe it's smaller stuff that they're moving to the truck.
Maybe they turn into NPCs and they just keep going on the same path.
It's just very strange to me. Sherilyn is seen placing a brown briefcase into the truck, and the briefcase still has never been found. So that briefcase has never been found, and her personal handgun has never been found.
Okay.
Skeletal remains of 2 adults and a child were discovered by hunters in a remote area of Latimer County in November of 2013. So 4 years after their disappearance,
wow, that's a
these
long
bodies
time
get
to be
found.
missing, dude.
They were less than 3 miles away from where the truck was found.
Doesn't seem like they searched very well.
I don't know. Maybe they only did a mile, away around the truck. Who knows? But Yeah, they were less than 3 miles away from the truck. It wasn't very far. The remains were forensically and anthropologically tested because obviously they're skeletal. But they were tested and determined to indeed be the remains of the Jamesons, probably based on whatever, bone sizing.
Dental records, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, maybe. That's a good idea. Yeah, I didn't even think about the fact that you can test teeth. But yeah, so they determine that it is the Jamesons. And on July 3rd, 2014, it's officially confirmed that these are the bodies of this family. And they weren't able to determine a cause of death for these bodies. And they were so decomposed, it's not like you can look at the tissue, and see where there's any bruising or whatever.
Right.
But some theorize that the family actually just went out of their way and faked their own death.
Okay.
So some say they faked their own death. Some say it was part of the witness protection program. Others think that it was straight up murder.
I was going to say, to fake your own death with the bodies of 2 adults and a child. Where are you going to get those bodies and then have the dental work adjusted to match? I don't know. There's a lot. That's a conspiracy theory and a half that I don't buy.
Yeah. Some claim that it was some sort of familicide. So,
killing
family and then yourself or something like that. But why would you leave? If you were faking your death, why would you leave the $32,000?
To make people think you were dead.
Oh, smart. Yeah, that's true.
Here's the thing. Whenever conspiracy theories pop up, I have to ask myself, could I have done that? And if I could, would I have done it that way?
Okay.
Leaving the money behind? Fuck yeah. It's a great way to make people think that you were actually murdered or, you weren't still around.
All right.
The whole body thing, though, that matches me perfectly. It's too much. Couldn't do it. There's no way. I can't figure out a way to do that. I've seen the whole 9 yards. I know that they get the fucking dentist guy to change the dental records and then burn the body beyond recognition.
Yes.
There's still going to be DNA testing for these corpses that were found. That's all I'm saying. So, I don't know. That sounds very dubious to me.
So, it was known that Bobby was in a lawsuit with his father, Bob Dean, prior to their disappearance, in which he had threatened the family and struck him with his vehicle in 2008.
Damn.
It was claimed that his father was involved with meth and some other illegal activity. And it's believed by authorities that this has nothing to do with their actual disappearance. So I don't know how they determine that.
Yeah.
But they clear his dad.
It's a weird thing to clear him of when it's they have $32,000 just in cash on them and they were murdered.
Yeah.
That's like an episode of Breaking Bad right there. That's all I'm saying.
There was also more than just his dad. Bobby was in a custody battle with his ex-wife over his 2 older children that he also had. So it's just, I think it's a lot for this one dude to be going through.
It's a lot of enemies.
It's making me think the faking the death is more and more, likely or something like that. But if he's fighting for custody of his kids, why would he fake his own death?
It's true. Unless he was taking his kids with. He could be listening to this episode right now I got him.
Another theory is that they themselves were actually the ones involved in the criminal drug activity. So that's another reason why they could have faked their deaths. Why they would have that much cash in the car, that kind of makes sense if they were involved in drug activity. Bobby had a history of drug use, so it's not completely impossible. The area that they were found in was supposedly known for drug activity.
I will say, man, that theory holds a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Because if they had done something wrong and they were trying, that would mean they're trying to run, trying to take all the money that they have with them so they can start a new life. And if they got caught by whoever they were running from, it's it is not about the money.
It's not about the money.
I was more or less quoting the Joker from Dark Knight. It's about sending a message.
Yes.
Killing the people that crossed you and leaving the money behind definitely send some sort of a message to anyone else.
That makes sense.
I will come for you type of thing. So this makes a whole lot more sense. I'm still waiting for the ghosts. Do they make crystal meth out of ghosts?
So I'm sure you're all asking how this fits into the theme of the episode, like Adam.
I just asked it. Yeah.
The Jamesons had actually told their local pastor, Gary Brandon, that on separate occasions they had actually seen ghosts within their home. What?
I was like, were they smoking meth at the time?
Oh my God. Supposedly, Bobby even claimed to have read from the Satanic Bible.
Which instantly guarantees ghosts.
So, guys, I have read the Satanic Bible. It's not going to give you ghosts.
Get the fuck out.
Like,
No, like literally leave the home.
shut up. Murder, that could probably give you ghosts. Tragedy, that's probably going to give you ghosts. But there's a slew of things that are going to give you ghosts. Reading a book about this guy's thoughts and beliefs is not going to give you ghosts. In my opinion, as somebody who's already read that book. Anyway, the couple believed that their 6-year-old daughter, Madison, had actually been having conversations with a ghost girl, who had died within their house decades before. So,
any records to substantiate that claim?
There's no evidence to substantiate that claim.
Okay.
Some sources also say that the truck had been found with strange symbols and writing all over it.
Okay, that's weird.
So that is weird.
Well, was it graffiti, like gangland graffiti type shit?
It could have been if the area is indeed an area that is known for, drug activity. I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, but I have no idea what the area is actually like.
I'm curious as to how the graffiti, I shouldn't say graffiti, but these symbols that they're talking about, like, was it like carved into the dash? Because that's
or like
one thing.
Painted.
Or painted with spray paint type of thing. Yeah, I'm curious.
Nothing is ever straightforward, obviously. Supposedly, Sherilyn was on medication for mental health issues, which might explain her trance-like state in the surveillance footage. The couple were arguing over money because they were trying to purchase a 40-acre plot of land about 30 miles away from their home. So they were already dealing with that. Nothing's ever simple, and there's a lot going on in this family's life. Maybe they were haunted by ghosts, or maybe they were haunted by their own demons. We'll never know.
Right on.
Yeah.
That one's pretty good. I like that
Thanks.
one too.
It was
morbidly
kinda
fascinating
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, the end though, tying that in where it's like they were haunted. They were telling people they were haunted. They could have just made that up. It's like, oh no, we left our meth lab out and the pastor wants to come by.
Okay.
And we're just like, we got ghosts, like you can't come over. Okay. We keep seeing ghosts everywhere. And he's just like, I can help you with that. I can bless the house for a fee.
It's always for a fee.
Yeah, who knows? I'm just making up random stuff.
God don't work
point.
for free.
So, wow. So, I don't know. Those are really good, though. Those are very curious. I'm not sure what you want to name your topic, but I'm going to need you to figure it out here in like 10 minutes. So,
I don't know. I feel like death and ghosts doesn't work because it's like
death and taxes, but you just put ghosts in there.
Ghosts and crime.
Ghost crime.
Ghost crime.
I don't know. We'll figure something out for it. But anyways, that's not for you guys to have to listen to. I think that's everything for this episode, right?
Yeah.
If you have anything that you want to share with us, a personal ghost story, something supernatural, spiritual, coincidental, extraterrestrial, true crime in nature, feel free to email storytime@scaryish.com, or you can hit up our website, scaryish.com, click on contact us, fill out that form, or you can message us on our social medias. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Twitter is @scarishpod. And Instagram is @scarishpodcast. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. Those are monthly donations with tiers starting at $1. You can also go to ko-fi.com/scarishpodcast. And those are one-time donations.
Yep. So we would love to hear from you. Feel free to kick us any support that you might be able to. And if not, we understand you guys. Things are tight sometimes, and any support you guys can give us, even just by listening or sharing the show with a friend, means the world to us. So that is everything we have for this episode 277 of Scaryish. Thank you so much for listening. Robin, why don't you go ahead and sign us out?
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.